chapter 32. It's official, because it's December 1st, that Christmas time is truly here. How many of you already decorated your house? Raise your hand. Already did? All right. Man, that was pretty good. We decorated ours, and my wife did an amazing job. I did not do an amazing job, but she did. I don't know what I was putting up there. I left like old candy canes on our tree from last year, and they were like all melted together. I was like, I can save candy canes. I'm saving money. I was wrong. That was a dumb idea. But anyways, I'm sure your house did not have that. But what's amazing about Christmas is that it's a time where we get to focus on peace, and more so the Prince of Peace. But realistically, and it sounds kind of a bummer, but it's true, is that realistically, there always seems like there's battles ahead of us. We've been talking about this whole Battle Belongs series, and we talk about when you're in the midst of the battle. And what I want to really focus on tonight is, how do we prepare for the battles ahead? How do we know how to prepare and how to fight? And most importantly, how do we know to keep our mind focused that the battle belongs to God and not to us, not to our power? So far, we've talked about, all right, yell out the battles we've talked about so far. Pop quiz. What some battles we've talked about? We've done 4. We got Zeke. Yeah, the battle of Ai, good. What else? Let's review. I know we're in class now. All right, just yell it. Jericho, good. All right, got Jericho. We got battle of Ai. 2 more. What we talked about last week? Had to do with Joshua. Oh, you hear that awkward silence? It's literally crickets. We talked about the sun standing still. And then Pastor Ben gave us a message on Elisha before the invisible army. And what we're seeing as this continual theme throughout is exactly what's on the screen. The battle belongs to the Lord. Don't get tired of that. Because what we see throughout all of Scripture is that people forgot that. When these battles came up, they said, this battle is different than the last one, Lord. But he always says, the battle belongs to me. Victory is from the Lord. And why would that be any different in our life? These are battles we're looking at that are thousands of years ago, yet the truth is still applicable today, that the battle belongs to the Lord. And I want us to focus on how we can prepare for the battles ahead. So we're in 2 Chronicles chapter 32. And I was thinking of this idea of being prepared for the battle ahead. And I realized I went back home to North Carolina for Thanksgiving, me and my wife did, and got to see my family. And I was reminded of something amazing about moms. If you're a mom, raise your hand, okay? All right, give moms a round of applause. That's great, okay? Good, all right. But I realized something about my mom, that she's always prepared. Like, always prepared. And exhibit A of how she's always prepared is her purse. Like, she has so much in that purse that's perfect for any need. Like, truly, if I need chapstick, I know she has chapstick. If I need a mint, which sometimes I do, like if I'm falling asleep, I'm like, Mom, I need a mint, she always has a mint. I get a stain, right? Tide pen all the time. I think there was one time, I might be remembering this wrong, but I was like, man, I really need a toothbrush. She's like, I got you, and then just pulls out a toothbrush with toothpaste. She's ready. I mean, I think she could fit a whole rotisserie chicken into that purse, like, and just be ready. It's great. It's kind of like Santa Claus's red bag that's just never ending with gifts. It's like, it's never empty. I've never seen that purse empty. I have no idea what's inside of it, but I know when I need something, it's in there. She's prepared for everything. And this got me thinking of, like, what's some weird things that have been in people's purses? And it wasn't, like, too weird, but, like, I don't know, think about your own purse. I remember my mom, like, she had some weird stuff. And she would, like, hand stuff to me and, like, say, hey, eat this is fine. I was like, Mom, that's got to be, like, 10 years expired. Like, how long has that been in your purse? And then I eat it anyways because I was hungry. But some random things that I found is the first picture is, they said this happens a lot. Oh, next one for me, Kevin. The next one we have is, like, this lady was shopping and just put her hot dogs into her purse because, grocery shop, who needs a bag when you have a purse, right? And then forgot about them and then realized, oh, later on, I have hot dogs if I ever need them for lunch. So that, like, I was looking at the statistics from it because I went on way deep of a rabbit trail that I didn't need to. But then, like, a lot of women put their groceries in their purse and then forget about it. Maybe not a lot, but a few, right? And then there was another one that was interesting of people putting dog treats in their bags. Like, anytime their dog needs a treat or you're just walking. I don't know, anybody done that before? Raise your hand if you've ever put dog treats in there. No? Okay. It's good. You're like, I'm not admitting that in front of everybody. All right. There you go. Chanel was proud. All right. This kept coming up a lot. I thought it was fascinating because I would love to see a mom pull this out of her bag. I'll go ahead, Kevin, with the next one. Is a switchblade. Like, I kept seeing that come up. And I was like, if my mother pulls out a switchblade, I would actually be scared. Like, that would be amazing. Like, she just flipped the knife up and down, like, hey, come at me, come at my son. It's like, I would not come at that lady. All right, if I'm robbing an old lady and she pulls out a switchblade, I'm walking the opposite direction, okay? Like, that's crazy. And it, like, kept happening. I know the internet's a weird place, but I kept finding, like, these women who were, like, carrying switchblades. Not pepper spray. I'd probably have a sword in there or something. And then the last thing is, this is what was most seen is it's like a whole bunch of crumbled up receipts and then really old and stale Cheerios. And I remember my mom used to do this because I would get like so hungry and I get hangry and I get annoying, and I see why she did it. She's like, just eat the Cheerios, they're fine. And she wouldn't show me that they're at the bottom of the bag, all crusty, covered in who knows what, but then like she would just sneak it out without me seeing where it was, and like, here's a Cheerio, eat some Cheerios. And I think I ate a few of those Cheerios sometimes. But like the amount of food that's probably encrusted into a purse is crazy. But I was thinking through this, and I was like, man, my mom was ready for any circumstance with me because all sorts of weird things happen. She was ready for seemingly every situation, any context. But in reality, what's hard about being prepared is that you don't know what's coming next. You might have an idea of it, but you don't know exactly. You don't know what's going to happen 2 hours from now, or even necessarily 5 minutes from now. It's not guaranteed. And for a planning person, I'm a planner. You can ask my wife. Like, I like everything planned. That stresses me out. If I don't know what's happening next, and that I can't for sure determine what's going to happen next, it stresses me. Because what that means is I can have everything perfectly planned, but there's still some uncertainty because still something could go wrong. That leaves an opportunity for things to go wrong. And the truth here that we keep seeing in Scripture, in the Christian life even, is that there are battles ahead, that there are hard times coming, whether it be this week, whether it be this month, this year, this decade. And there's uncertainty around those battles ahead because you don't know what it's going to be, you don't know how hard it's going to be, you don't know how you're going to make it through. And the only certainty you have is that time is moving forward closer to these battles, and it's closer and closer to hardship. And I can't know what will happen. What's amazing about this passage that we'll be in tonight is that we can be prepared and be ready when these battles do come. Because it's not an if, it's a when. When these battles come that lie ahead. And our main point tonight is that every believer can be ready for the battles ahead by following the example of Hezekiah in 2 Chronicles 32. Yes, trials are coming, but the comfort is that a trial has never once surprised God. That's an amazing thought. Think about that. Like, God's never surprised. I'm surprised daily. Like, something happens like, oh, I didn't think that would happen. Like, but God's never surprised. He's never thrown off. He's never flustered. He knows. And what Hezekiah is in right now, when we pick up in 2 Chronicles, is he's in a similar situation. Right before him is a trial. Right before him is him struggling with trusting God through that trial. And I want to give some context, because we're hopping into the middle of a story here. But what we have is that Israel is divided. And we have a map up here to kind of show what's happening. Is that we have Israel, and it's been split into two kingdoms, okay? They had this rivalry with Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and now at this time in history, Israel is at the top, and then that's the northern kingdom. And then you have Judah, which is the southern kingdom. And this Assyrian empire is now coming through, dominating everything. They've already gotten this side of the world. Now they're coming down for Israel. And when we pick up in the story with Hezekiah, what's already happened is the Assyrian empire has come in and taken over the northern kingdom. So now, if they got the northern kingdom, what do they want next? The southern kingdom. So right now there's this ruler, we'll talk about him in a second, but there's this ruler that is now coming to already take over Israel, and now coming for Judah, coming for Jerusalem, coming for this holy city. And the great enemy here, the bad guy, so to speak, is the Assyrian Empire, right? They had a king named Sargon. He just died, and he passed the throne to a man named Sennacherib. Great name for your kid, just great. I don't know what your nickname would be for him, but passed it to Sennacherib. And during this transfer of power, Hezekiah had an idea, because he was like paying tribute to the Assyrians so they won't attack him. It's kind of like how you pay off a mob boss so he doesn't beat you up, kind of that idea, right? It's like he's paying this tribute to King Sargon, but now King Sargon died, so Hezekiah says, well, maybe I can get out paying tribute. Maybe we don't have to pay money to the Assyrians anymore. Sennacherib doesn't like this. He says, no, you're not going to get off that easy. And they begin to attack. They begin to go around Jerusalem, get all the territories in between, and now they have their eyes set on this holy city. Because if Jerusalem falls, the whole kingdom falls. And they are truly right next door, these Assyrians, Sennacherib. They're coming for Hezekiah, and he knows it's happening. And what we see, even in the context leading up to this, is that Hezekiah attempts to buy them off. He actually goes and finds all the gold in his city. He actually goes into the temple and starts getting gold out of there, saying, hey, Sennacherib, you don't fight us, I'll give you all this gold. Actually, take it all. Just don't come for us. Sennacherib takes it, it eases him for a little bit. He doesn't attack them immediately, but now he says, you know what? I think I do want you. I'll get the gold, and I'll get you, and I'll get everything. And Hezekiah is at this point where, what do I do? And he actually makes some really good decisions. We see in 2 Chronicles chapter 31, right before the context, right before verses 20 through 21, what happens is that Hezekiah actually is showing how he is doing right. It says in 2 Chronicles 31, verse 20, it says, and thus did Hezekiah throughout Judah, and wrought that which was good and right and truth before the Lord his God. And in every work that began in the service of the house of God, and in the law, and in the commandments to seek his God, he did with all his heart and prospered. What that's saying there is that Hezekiah is doing the right thing. His character has kind of changed here. He's cleansing the temple. He's getting all the filth out of the temple and restoring worship to God. He's getting all the idols, and he's focusing on making God their God, the God. And what ends up happening is things are going so good. It's like happy days. Psych, something happens in verse 32. And sometimes that can seem like life. Like, I always get scared when things are going really good. This is my pessimistic attitude, because if things are going really good, I'm like, for how long? For how long are they going to go good? And I miss the blessing of the good because I'm so worried about when the bad's going to come. And right now, Hezekiah is like, I'm doing the right thing, but yet now Sennacherib is coming. And now we pick up in chapter 32 of 2 Chronicles. And look at verse 1. It says, and after these things, after the right things that Hezekiah has done and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah and encamped against the fenced cities and thought to win them for himself. What's happening here is Hezekiah is knocking on, or more so, Sennacherib is knocking on the door saying, Hezekiah, open up, we're coming to invade you. And now Hezekiah has this choice. They're waiting right outside. He's got to make a decision. And where he is right now is there is a battle ahead. I mean, think of how intimidating that would be. You're the king. Everyone's looking to you for answers. You have this guy, Sennacherib, who's just like bloodthirsty murderer. And now he wants to send these armies in. He's saying, I'm coming. You better do something. You better make some decision. And Hezekiah is saying, now what? What do I do? I mean, that'd be a crazy thought. Like if we went outside today and there's just these tanks outside waiting for us. Like, I don't know what would be a threatening country. You know, if Canada decided to invade Findlay, okay, we'll use Canada because they're very threatening, right? And Canada comes in and they're outside with these tanks, with these people, and they're saying, we're coming to destroy you. What are you going to do? And then we all look to the leader. It's like, well, what are we going to do? What do we do? Like, this is a harsh situation. Hezekiah has all this pressure on his shoulders. He's saying, there is a trial ahead of me. What do I do? And what interests me is he has three different actions. He's thinking through. He's scared. He's nervous. He knows pain is going to come. He knows a trial is ahead. And what he does is three different actions. The first one is he remembers the truth. He remembers the truth. What he says in verses 2 through 3 is, we need a plan. We can't just let this happen. And what he's saying here is not a lack of trust in God. He's saying that we need to actually go and do something about this. We can't just sit back. That doesn't mean he's not trusting God to take care of it. He's saying we need to be prudent. We need to be prepared. And that's the same way with us. Like if I went into my house and the stove's on fire, I'm not going to be like, I just need to trust God with the stove on fire, and eventually it'll go away. It's like, no, you need to have a plan to go knock the fire out. Right? Hezekiah's saying we need to have a plan for this. Plans aren't bad until you make the plan bigger than God. What Hezekiah does is he prepares the city first physically. And he has phase one of doing this. See this in verse 4. What he does is he stops the flow of water. Because we have this very famous time period where Hezekiah makes this water tunnel. I think I have a picture of it up here. All right, we have Hezekiah's water tunnel, and he's been able to irrigate and make this whole tunnel system where it gives them a fresh supply of water. What was happening, though, if the Assyrians are camping right outside, they have access to this water. He doesn't want his enemy to have access to water, because if you have water, you can last for a long time. So he says, first, okay, what we need to do is we need to shut off this tunnel. Make sure we still have access to it, but I don't want the Assyrians mooching off of our water. Right? It's like I'm not going outside and giving the Canadian soldiers cheeseburgers. Like I'm not going to help them. I need to stop that. I need to stop this flow of water. And then phase 2, he says, okay, we stopped water. Now we need to build up our defenses. And what he does that's interesting is, hit me with the next slide, please, is this is a little bit hard to see, but what I want you to really notice is that he goes to the outer wall. And he says, we need to rebuild this. It's looking kind of not great. So we're going to make the wall a little bit bigger. Then I want you to make an inner wall around really important places in Jerusalem. So there's a wall, there's an outer wall, and then if they even come in, there's still another wall that they have to get over. He says, we got to prepare our defenses. What we see here is not a lack of trust in God. He's saying, this is a display of wisdom, right? There's this quote by Oliver Cromwell where he says, put your trust in God, boys, and keep your powder dry. And what he's saying is he's in the middle of a battle, the English Civil War, and he's at the Battle of Edge Hill, and he's telling his people, hey, we need to trust in God, but that doesn't mean we're going to sit and just let people shoot at us. Like, we're going to fight back. What Hezekiah is doing, he's saying, I'm just going to let these people come in and blaspheme my God, like, and attack us and kill God's people. We're going to have a plan. We're going to shut off the water, and we're going to build. And then what he does is very interesting, is he prepares the city spiritually. So he gets them physically, makes sure, okay, we're good. We have our defenses up. We're not just letting them in with our walls down. But then he says, we need to prepare spiritually. We see this in verse 7. Hezekiah says these very familiar words. He says, be strong and courageous. Be not afraid nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with him, for there will be more with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. What I love there is he is addressing the emotions being felt. He doesn't just have this physical plan. He says, you guys are struggling mentally, emotionally. Let's talk through this. And the first advice he gives is what was given to Joshua in Joshua 1:9. Don't fear. Be strong and courageous. Don't be dismayed. You have no reason to be freaking out right now. Don't be anxious. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. Because what keeps happening is that battles continue on since Joshua all the way through this time. There's just so much battle going on, so much war. And what's always been a reminder is don't be afraid. Instead of being afraid, be strong and courageous. And it keeps getting brought up in the battles. And I was thinking, why does that keep getting brought up? And it's like, duh, because the soldiers were afraid. They were afraid of what was going to happen. Sometimes I just see like Hezekiah as this big warrior and a big king who was wise in a lot of ways, but he was scared. And he knew the people were scared. Man, I try to put up a really good facade and act like I'm really tough a lot of times, but like the battles ahead that are in my life scare me sometimes. Like the things I know are coming, it's like, I don't know if I'm prepared for that. They scare me, and I get fearful. And when I get fearful, I get anxious. And when I get anxious, I start overthinking, and then I just start shutting down, and then I live in fear for the rest of my life rather than being proactive and prudent. And it's this slippery slope that many of us can fall into because we're afraid of what lies ahead, whether what we know is going to happen or the uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen. But that king, that trial we have, this King Sennacherib, the trial in your life, man, what I love that Hezekiah says is, nor for all the multitude that is with him. Yeah, they have a lot, but there is more with us than with him. And he makes sure this is clear in verse 7. He says, this arm of flesh. With him is an arm of flesh, right? Sennacherib's buff. Like, he's got this big arm, and he could really destroy us. Like, if I was going up to fight someone, and they have this arm of flesh, like if I was going to fight, let me think of a buff dude, Mike Tyson, all right? If I was going to fight Mike Tyson, okay, I'm going to lose, okay? If I just go up, because he's got an arm of flesh. He's got two of them, and his muscles have muscles, and he would destroy me just by looking at me. I'd actually be very scared to be near Mike Tyson, right? But there's this fear that came because they looked so powerful and devastating. Sennacherib was not some wimp. And the Assyrians were known for being cruel. Not only did they think that Hezekiah not want to lose, he didn't want to be tortured. He didn't want them to lose their entire kingdom and have the shame that comes with that. But what he reminds and says, people, yeah, okay, your trial head, this Sennacherib guy, he's got an arm of flesh. He looks powerful. You know, he is powerful. But let me remind you, but with us is the Lord our God. You know how small Sennacherib is compared to God? You know how small our trials are compared to God? And that doesn't mean that God doesn't care about them. The amazing thing is that God does care about our trials. But he's so much bigger, which means he can help us to be victorious. What's annoying to me, though, is that I make this trial seem really big, and then I say, God, that's a big trial, though. Like, I know you're the great I am and all, but, like, that is a big trial. So I got to try to solve it because you can't do it, so I got it. It's like, that's how do we say it? Dumb. That's dumb. There's this trial, and it's man, it might be bigger than I can face, 100%. And is it hard? 100%. Does it hurt? 100%. But let me never for a second think that trial is bigger than my God. Because the Lord is on my side. Or more so, I'm on the Lord's side. It's not that I have the Lord and I get to boss him around. No, he is the general, and I'm his soldier. And I love that the Lord is capitalized there. It means it's Yahweh. That means it's a personal thing. He's not just saying some title. He's saying, no, your God, the one who loves you, is there. The God of all, he will help. He will fight, and you will never lose. And I love how it ends on verse 8. And the people rested themselves. The word rested could be translated confident, that they stopped being fearful. Some of you, myself included, haven't rested in a very long time. You've managed, you've gotten by, but you haven't rested. You still have that fear and that anxiety that's always right there in the back of your head. And it just follows you. And you verbally say, Miles verbally says, the battle belongs to the Lord. But then I go home and I'm like, does it though? Does it? Like, this looks really big though. This is hard. I know we just said amen to the battle belongs, and I'm so glad we heard that. But my actions aren't proving it. My actions aren't proving that my battle belongs to the Lord because I'm still up at night, can't go to sleep. I'm too worried about it. I'm stressed about it. I'm still trying to control every detail and try to keep my hands on it because if I let go, then it's all going to fall apart. I'm still stressing. I'm still obsessing. I'm still overthinking. I'm still questioning. I'm still trying to plan everything. No wonder we feel so anxious because we're trying to keep such a hold on it that we could do it. And if I let go, what if it all falls apart? And what I found in my life is that so often I'm led by my feelings. I say, like, I feel like this. I feel like this. Feelings are not a bad thing, but your feelings aren't always truth. We need to go to what is true, what we know is true. My feelings change daily, hourly, minute by minute probably. Like sometimes I'm hungry, sometimes I'm not hungry, sometimes I'm mad, sometimes I'm not mad, sometimes I'm anxious, sometimes I don't even know how I feel. No one should trust Miles's feelings, right? Because they're all over the place. What we should be trusting is God, the truth. We should be trusting the truth. What he's told us, what we know is true is that the Lord our God is here to help us, to fight our battles. And we know the specific context here is to Hezekiah, but he said that throughout all of Scripture. He said it to his people. What's an amazing truth here, this idea of remembering truth, the truth we need to remember is that our God is stronger. And we can have all the plans in the world, all the plans. And I have a lot of plans, but God establishes the steps. When I plan something and it goes good, there should not be a pat on the back moment for Miles. It's like, my God was so merciful. Like that plan should not have worked, but he was good. He was the one in control. I need a plan, like as Hezekiah did, but I also need to surrender and know that God will take care of tomorrow. Sufficient is day for its own trouble. The best preparation is to arm yourself with truth, not arm yourself with flesh. Not be so focused on what ifs, but be focused on what is. What is the truth? What is the truth is the Lord is with us. So number one, we need to remember truth. Instead of being guided by our feelings, instead of being guided by the circumstances in front of us and allowing those to shift how we feel and how we act, we follow God. We remember truth. The truth is that there's more with us than with them because we have the Lord God on our side. The second is to prepare for our battle, we need to remember the truth. And number two, we need to resist the opposition. What Sennacherib does is he starts sending these messengers to address Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem, and then specifically Hezekiah. And the goal here is to intimidate. He wants to be intimidating. He wants to turn Judah against their king and against their Lord. And we see this in verse 10. He lays it out pretty harsh. Thus saith Sennacherib, king of Assyria, whereon do ye trust, that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? Doth not Hezekiah persuade you to give over yourselves to die by famine and by thirst, saying, the Lord our God shall deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? And what he's saying there is he's belittling Hezekiah. He's talking to the people and saying, you're going to trust that Hezekiah guy? No, he's belittling, saying that man is nothing. He's trash talking. He is truly trying to intimidate, right? I don't know if you ever met a person who's really good at trash talking. There's a lot of trash talking that happens in a youth group. Like if you see us right before any game, there's so much trash talking. And they're all smiling because like, yeah, we say it to you, Miles. Yeah, we trash talk. Yeah, okay? Like just so much trash talking. Sometimes makes it more fun. I was looking through different examples of people who trash talk, and one kept coming up. It was Muhammad Ali. He was known as the Louisville Lip, right? Because he was just like trash talking to everyone. And he would go up to people and he would kind of move, and especially if they were bad at it, he would play with them. He would toy around with them because he knew he was good. And he even wrote this whole like poem about it where he was trash talking his next opponent. He says, I've wrestled with alligators. I've tussled with a whale. I've done handcuffed lightning and thrown thunder in jail. You know I'm bad. Just last week I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. That is great. I want that on a t-shirt. I want that on my tombstone. Like, I don't know what the Edge did. That's great. I don't know if he really wrote that, but like, could you imagine someone saying that to you before you box him? It's like, I don't know if I want to go. He makes medicine sick. What a insult. I love it. But like, this is trash talking. And what it would do, like, it was effective because he'd get into his opponent's heads. They'd be like, maybe he is really good. And then they try to box him, but they're already feeling intimidated, and he's already won the psychological battle, so physical battle is easy. And that's what Sennacherib is doing. That's what his messengers are doing. They're using psychological warfare to try to get the people to separate from their king. They're saying, if we can get the Israelites to turn against Hezekiah, they'll do our job for us. They'll just kick Hezekiah out, and then we'll come in. And what's interesting is he says in verse 10, like, we're about to destroy your city. Are you going to trust Hezekiah, or maybe you should trust us instead? Because verse 11, it says, Hezekiah is just going to bring destruction and devastation. Like, you keep following him, you're going to get famine, you're going to get toil. You don't want to go with him. And what we see is, it's interesting. There's 2 Chronicles chapter 32, which talks about the story, and then also 2 Kings 18. And I want to read some context there because it helps fill in some little holes in the story. And what we see is in 2 Kings, go ahead and turn with me in your Bibles to 2 Kings. I want you to see it. 2 Kings chapter 18. And we'll come back, hold your spot in 2 Chronicles 32. We'll come back to that. But 2 Kings 18, verse 31. And the Sennacherib, his messenger, is still talking to the Israelite people, or more so to the kingdom of Judah. It says, hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me. Then ye eat every man of his own vine, and every one of his own fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of oil, olive, and of honey, that ye may live and not die. And hearken not unto Hezekiah when he persuadeth you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. He's saying, this is exactly what Satan says. It's like uncanny, because it is. It's that he's saying, hey, if you come with us, we'll give you everything you dreamed. Like, we'll be fine. And like, these are the Assyrians talking. Like, these are the worst people ever. And they're saying, hey, just Israelites, like, what is Hezekiah doing for you? Like, just come with us, man. You'll get plenty of food. We'll give you a promised land, let me tell you. Just come with us. And he's tempting. He's provoking. He's prodding. He's saying, hey, leave, and just come with us. Ditch this Lord. Like, he's not going to be able to defeat us. You might as well just come with us. And then it says in verse 12 of 2 Chronicles, you can go ahead and turn back there, 2 Chronicles chapter 32. And what it says in verse 12, he's actually pinpointing on this dissatisfaction. He says, let's look at it. I don't think I have a slide for it, but verse 12. It says, hath not the same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, ye shall worship before one altar and burn incense upon it. And what he's saying is Hezekiah, instead of having all these different places of worship, Hezekiah reformed the temple and said, we're having the temple with the Ark of the Covenant. That's where we're doing worship. And that kind of made the Jewish people mad, because now like, now we don't have our own individual place. So this guy who's taunting them knows about their cultural situation. He's saying, hey, you're dissatisfied with Hezekiah. He's making you have to worship in the temple. Like, if you follow us, we'll let you worship anywhere. And this sounds so much like Satan, where he says, like, you don't have to follow God. Like, God's just a mean, big old meanie. But if you come with us, I'll give you what you desire. And, like, we hear it like that, and we're like, man, who would fall for that? Me. Like, every day. Every day Satan tempts me in that ear. And I wish I could be honest with you and be like, I don't fall for that. No, I do. Because instead of focusing on truth, I start focusing on, well, I do kind of want that. Satan, you're making it sound really good. Man, if I leave the Lord, I'll find pleasure here. I want some pleasure. And that's where I get into sin. That's where I get into pride. That's where I get into anger. That's where I get into anxiety. That's where I get into just name the sin. And what we see here is they're claiming very bluntly, don't obey Hezekiah. Let us in. And not only does he focus on Hezekiah, Sennacherib moves on. He says, now I'm going to blaspheme God. Okay, I'm not just mad at your Hezekiah, your king. I'm mad at your Lord. Your Lord's a nobody. We see this in verse 13 of 2 Chronicles. It says, know ye what I and my fathers have done unto the people of other lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands anyways able to deliver their lands out of my hand? Who is there among all the gods of those nations that my fathers utterly destroyed, that could deliver his people out of mine hand? That your God should be able to deliver you out of mine hand. And what he's saying there very plainly, he's saying, we've defeated a lot of countries and a lot of people and a lot of nations, and they all had gods. You know what their gods did? Nothing, because we're stronger than them. You think your God's good? We're going to destroy you. We're going to destroy you, and it's going to happen. Other countries, they had gods, didn't help. Why would your God be any different? And then he says in verse 15, to sum it up, is you're going to lose. Either you come out now, or we kill you, and you lose. Which do you want? And then when they went even a step above in verses 16 through 19, and they actually start writing mean letters of contempt, the Bible says, to Hezekiah to freak him out. Like, this is psychological warfare, like 100%. They're trying to get into people's heads and destroy them from the inside. So Hezekiah is literally getting these letters saying, hey, you stink. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. It's like, Nanabu, you're going to lose, right? But it's harsh. They're trying to get into his head and make this point that your leader, Israel, Hezekiah, and your God, the Lord, they're no match for Sennacherib. And it's so similar today that we probably don't have a wicked general in our life, but Satan uses people. And what he does is actually he's working, even wants me to doubt God. Man, a lot of my problems occur because I don't doubt that God's good enough or strong enough. And it makes me I have this temptation to doubt if God is really good, if God is really providing. And then I give in. I doubt, and then I give in. That's exactly what happened to Adam and Eve. They heard this temptation, and they gave in. And I think, as he's tempting me, as I'm thinking, what kind of a God would send me into a battle like this? Satan starts making me question God's good character. And then he says, come with me. I'll show you what's good. You can be free from the rules. You can be free from the expectations. Sometimes even people in your life, it could be a family member or a friend, but they're saying, how long are you going to keep this religious thing up? How long are you going to do this? This is just a fad. Like, move on. Come with us again, okay? Stop trying to be that person. Come be who we know you are. Come back and have fun. Or even sometimes people say, be intelligent for once. You're one of those Christians, like, come on, that's not, like, intelligent. Like, can you think for yourself for once? Stop listening to what other people tell you. But what was amazing is Hezekiah was smart. He prepared the people to resist the opposition's attempts. We see this in 2 Kings 18, verse 36. But they respond as Sennacherib's throwing these insults. His messenger is trying to get into the people's heads. What the people do is they held their peace and answered him not a word. For the king's commandment was saying, answer him not. He said, don't talk to them. You're just going to spur them on, and they're going to get into your head even more. It's like, you need to remain silent and just wait. Stay silent and don't feed into their lies. And another point of this, he's saying, remain loyal. When you feel that stress, when you feel that temptation, remain loyal. Because it can be so easy. It would have been so easy for the people just to throw their hands up and just say, I guess God isn't that good. I guess we'll give up. I'm just stuck, and I don't want to go through this again. But he says to remain loyal. It made me think, like, what if the Israelites didn't do that? They didn't listen to Hezekiah, and they let Assyria in. They believed the lies, and they would have been destroyed. And what I see so often in my life, though, is that when sin comes knocking on the door, making these threats, even blaspheming God and saying, he's not good, come here, I let sin in, and it destroys. Like, could you imagine if they let this Assyrian army in? It would have destroyed everything. We said, I'd never do that. Israelites, come on, like, you know they're trying to get into your head. But with sin, like, Satan tempts me the same way. And I know if I let that sin in, it makes all these veiled promises. The devil's a liar, and he's really good at it. And he makes it sound really good. You know, sometimes I put down my barriers. I put down those walls I made, put down those defenses, and I say, okay, well, sin come in just for a minute. Then sin comes in, and it destroys. Because I started entertaining the idea. I started thinking about it more. I started having this like little pet lion that I thought I could tame, but then it grew up into a big lion and destroyed me. And the Bible talks about this. If you have no self-control, it's like a city with no walls. See this in Proverbs 25:28. He has to have no rule over his own spirit. It's like a city that's broken down and without walls. And we have no self-control. If these people had no self-control, Syria would have come and destroyed them. If we have no self-control, sin comes in and destroys us. It's like us just saying, here I go. I guess I'm defenseless. But what Hezekiah wants these people to do, wants himself to do, is resist and remember who their God is. And who their God is, we see this in Psalm 47:2. It's an awesome verse, right? Literally, because it says, for Lord Most High is terrible. And what that word terrible means is best translated to this awesomeness. Like that God is awesome, that he's far above everything. You truly can't see him without being in awe. The awesomeness of God. And he is the greatest king over the earth. And no sin and no Sennacherib is bigger than that. The awesome God, the greatest ruler. He is stronger than any opposition, any sin, any circumstance, any burden, any fear. And what's terrifying to think about what Sennacherib is doing is that the Lord hears these insults. He hears these mockings, and he will act. The Lord will act, and I want to be found faithful when he does. And the summary that we've gotten so far is to prepare for this battle, we need to keep giving ourselves truth and then keep committed to God. Because the opposition is coming trying to tear us down, make all these lies. But we stand firm saying, I'm committed to who God is. And that leads us to our final action. What Hezekiah does is as he's remembering his truth, as he's resisting the opposition, then he reaches beyond himself. Reach beyond yourself. What we've seen so far is a whole lot of Hezekiah acting. And he did a whole lot of planning and commanding and deciding and defending. But he's realizing he's facing this tension. And he's understanding, I can't face the battle alone. Christian, you can't face the battle that lies ahead by yourself. So stop trying to do it by yourself. It doesn't work that way. What we see Hezekiah does, well, we see it in verse 20. Let's see, it says, and for this cause Hezekiah the king and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amos prayed and cried to heaven. What's interesting there is that, and we know this from looking at the context of 2 Kings and even Isaiah, we see that Hezekiah confides in someone else. He confides in the prophet he trusts, Isaiah. We see this in 2 Kings, chapter 19, verse 3. Hezekiah goes to Isaiah and asks for advice. And they said unto him, thus saith Hezekiah, this is a day of trouble. He's talking to Isaiah. So this is a day of trouble and of rebuke and blasphemy, for the children are come to the birth, and there's not strength to bring forth. He's saying, we're about to die. We're not going to make it. And he's distraught. He's just how we are right before a trial comes, like, I can't do this. Isaiah, we're all about to be destroyed. And it's not that he's just dramatic, right? That he's crying over a glass of spilled milk. No, he's about to lose his power and even watch his God be mocked. We see this in verse 6 through 7 of how Isaiah responds to Hezekiah and says, and Isaiah said unto them, thus ye shall say to your master, thus saith the Lord, be not afraid of the words which thou hast heard. Be not afraid of what Sennacherib is saying, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor, and shall return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. And what is happening here is Isaiah responds to Hezekiah's plea of desperation, and he says, Hezekiah, I'm glad you've come to me. Because here's a prophecy that God has given. Isaiah is uttering those words, but this is from God. These are his words. And he gives this prophecy. He says, first, again, don't be afraid. Reminder, you're afraid right now, Hezekiah? You're freaking out a little bit. Remember, you don't have to be afraid. I need to say that more to myself, because I get afraid a lot of what's going to happen next. But don't be afraid. Your minds, the Lord has heard this. And what the Lord's going to do is he's providentially going to work with Sennacherib. That's the idea of I will send a blast upon them. I will send something to providentially work in this king's situation. What will happen is, looking at verse 7, it says, and he shall hear a rumor. He's going to hear something. It's going to make him return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. And what Hezekiah is saying is, I know Sennacherib seems really big right now, but God promises he will not win. And actually, if you continue reading, it goes even further. He's not only not going to win, he's not going to have anyone, even a sword, enter Jerusalem. Isaiah gave much needed comfort to Hezekiah. In your battles, you're not stronger or more special if you try to do it alone. I know in my life, I really want to carry other people's burdens, but I don't want to be the one giving people my burden. And I put that as some badge of honor of like, no one's going to carry my burden. I got it. I'll help carry yours, but I got my burden. That is so selfish. That is so prideful. That's not what the Lord asks us to do. To say that I can do it all. And when I get into my battle, when I get into a trial, I so often try to do it by myself. Illustration, all right? What is this? Anybody know? You see it? Okay. It's a can opener, all right? Okay. This is embarrassing, but it makes a point. So we're going to go with it, all right? I've never used one of these, all right? That's sad. I know it's sad. You can judge me a little bit. It's okay. I accept it, all right? But I used an electric one, so I'm not that bad, all right? But I had no idea how to use this thing. And then we were having people over, and Anna's like, hey, can you open this can of beans? And I was like, yeah, I can open a can of beans. I can be helpful, all right? And then I'm like looking at the can, I'm like, how do you open it? It doesn't have one of those flap things. Like, how do you open it? And then I was like, do I just hit it on something? And she's like, no, there's a can. She's really nice. Like, even when I'm being really stupid, I can see in her eyes, I'm like, you think I'm stupid, but you're not saying it because you're nice, and I appreciate that. But, like, she's like, here's a can opener, and you can use it. And I said, oh, okay. And I'm a guy, so I'm like, oh, yeah, duh. I was testing you. Yeah, for sure. And then I get it. I'm like, I have no idea how to use this thing. And, like, the more I used it, the more angry I got at it. And then, like, I couldn't get it into the thing, so I'm like, and she's like, hey, do you want help? No, I got this can of beans, all right? And I'm like trying to put it in, and then I'm like twisting it, and then it's like going in and out, and it's like, now I'm getting really mad at it, and I'm like about to yell this thing of beans. I'm like, Anna, people are coming over, and I can't get the beans out. And I'm like trying to put the thing in, and then I succumb a little bit. I said, okay, just get it started. Like, just get it a little bit started. I want to finish it. You get it started. She's like, okay. And then she puts it in, and I failed so miserably. I could not get it. And then, then anger started taking over, and then I'm like, have the thing half in, and I'm banging it against, like, my knee to try to get it open, and I got, like, part of it open. So then, like, this is not sanitary, but then I just, like, stuck my hands in the beans to rip it off. That was a dumb idea, because now I have, like, these cuts all over my hand, and I'm like, now blood's everywhere, and now the beans are infected, but I'm like, these beans will get out of this can. So I get the plate, and I'm, like, ripping the container off, and now I toss this thing, makes me mad, so I'm done with it. All right, so that's all out of the equation. And she's like, Miles, I can help. I'm like, no, I will get these beans out myself. And I'm ripping the can and I'm plopping it, and I say, there's our beans. And then no one should have eaten those beans. There was a lot of things wrong. But I got it out of the can. I never got the lid off, but I got like part of it, so I like got a spoon and like scraped it out, and then beans came out. And what that is a perfect illustration of is how Miles is stubborn and doesn't like taking advice. Because what he does is says, I got it, 100%. And she's nice saying, hey, you can just ask me. I'm like, no, I can figure this out as a can opener, okay? I could do this. I could not do it. I was wrong, right? And I see that so often in my life. Like that happens way more than it should. That I think I can do it all. And I don't want to ask anyone for help because I can do it. And it's a pride thing that I can do it. And I don't need anyone's help. And I could just picture Hezekiah just thinking this idea of like, man, I don't know what to do, but I'm doing everything in my power, but he's still there. He's still scary. What is amazing, Hezekiah thought and realized, I have Isaiah I can go to. All right, I want all of you to look around at each other. Make awkward eye contact. Don't look at me, look at each other. Okay, all right, good. Make it awkward. All right, now you can look back. All right, okay. God has given you people in your life to help you. You're not supposed to do it by yourself. That's why we have a church. That's why we have a church that's so loving. And our church is characterized by that, the amount of love I feel by all of you. God has given people in your life to help guide you, not just give advice, and sometimes it's just to be a presence that's there. And what's even bigger than that is that there's people in your life that can give you biblical wisdom. I need to seek counsel for the battle ahead. I need to confide in others and say, hey, can you help me? Then Hezekiah does the best strategy that he could do, the most important strategy, most important action, the most important response. We see this in verse 20 again. So he talks to Isaiah. For this cause Hezekiah the king and prophet Isaiah, they confided with each other. And then what does Hezekiah and Isaiah do? They prayed and cried to heaven. What he does is Hezekiah bows before God. And that is something I skip over because what I think is I need to get to the more practical. I need a solution. I need to solve it. But let me tell you, no man-made strategy could ever replace the divine act of bowing before Yahweh. There's nothing I could do that's better than bowing before his presence saying, Lord, I need your help. Not Miles' help, not anyone else's help, although I want a multitude of counselors or safety, but Lord, I need your help. Because the problem is I want to solve it. And when this battle's ahead, my instinct is like, all right, buckle up, buttercup. It's going to get hard and you can do it. And I got this. I can put it in my own hands. That's so arrogant. First, to think I don't need to go to God because I can do it better than him. I can do it better than the holy God. To think I don't need him. And you would say, well, Miles, I'm not saying that. It's like if you're not going to pray to him, you don't think you need him. Because when we go to prayer, we realize I do need you. Lord, I need you so desperately. And there's this tendency I've seen in my own life of that sometimes when I don't want to ask people to pray for me because I think that's a sign of weakness. And that's foolish. That's how prideful Miles is. Or I don't want to say, please pray for me. No, I got this. You don't need to know about my problems. Hey, tell me how I can pray for you. Okay, cool, I'll pray for you. You don't need to pray for me. I got it. I got my problems. I can take care of it. But man, the wisest thing I could do is say to someone, please pray for me. Please bring me before the throne of God because I need help and I need him, the source of all my strength. Man, prayer is not a suggestion. It's a necessity. We need to pray. And I love Hezekiah's prayer. We see this in 2 Kings 19, where what he does is he comes and he spreads out the letters, these contempt letters. He puts them before his room. He looks at these letters, and then he doesn't have a heated response. He just laid it all before God, and he says, O God of Israel, which dwelleth between the cherubims, thou art the God, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth, thou hast made heaven and earth. What he does is he says, Lord, you're amazing. He doesn't start jumping right into prayer requests. He says he's transfixed by the glory of God. And when's the last time I prayed and all my prayer was about praising him? And what Hezekiah does and what God wants him to do is in verse 16, he actually gives the request. He says, Lord, you see that Sennacherib is mocking you and that Assyria has destroyed so many other nations. What are we going to do? And we see this in verse 19, what he says. What are we going to do? Now, therefore, O Lord our God, I beseech thee, I'm requesting, I'm before you, laying out my heart, Lord, save thou us out of his hand. Save us, that all the kingdoms of the earth, I love his reason for salvation, what he says, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord God, even thou only. He says, save us. Why? Not so that he can feel better, not so that he can find pleasure in life, not so that he can live his life the way he wants to. The main reason he says, I want the world to know that this God is the true God, and he deserves all the glory, not Sennacherib, not any other country. He says, the main reason, Lord, is I want people to see your glory. Not mine. Hezekiah says, no, I want to point it all to you. And they're mocking your name. Make your name known so they know how powerful and true of a God you are. And so often I want to get through the battle ahead so I feel better. But what I'm so focused on is I need to get through the battle so I can get out of here and get what I really want. What my real motivation needs to be is when this battle is ahead and it's coming, what I want is people to see God through me, through this battle. I want to see God magnified. Lord, do this. Please help me so that people see your glory. Not so I get out of all the trials, that people can see you better. Lord, use this hard thing in my life so that I can be a beacon to point people to you. And what's amazing here is that God hears the prayer. And what happens at the very end is in verse 21 is the angel comes in. An angel comes and kills like 185,000 soldiers. Then Sennacherib's ashamed. And then according to Isaiah's prophecy, he goes back home. And then some time passes. Then eventually Sennacherib, this big guy, is killed by his own sons. They go to his temple while he's praying and to his false god and kill him. He's not so big now. You know who's still here? The Lord. You know he's not here? Sennacherib. He didn't make it, but the Lord did. And the Lord saved and provided once again. And in verse 24, we see the people rejoice. The most amazing thing about this story is not the angel. It's not even necessarily the victory. But it's that God listened to the desperate cry of a hurting human. He says, I hear you, Hezekiah, and I will make you battle ready. I don't know what your battles are ahead. I don't know if it's, you guys, you got school tomorrow. You have to go back into it again. That would be a battle for me. I don't know if it's a hard conversation you have to have with someone that you know at work, with a friend, with a relationship, whoever it is. You know it's coming. Now you're stressed about it. Man, it could be this Christmas season that's right around the corner, and that's supposed to be a jolly, happy time, but you're scared to go through it because it brings back memories, it brings back hurt. It could be a family argument. It could be a marriage or a friendship that's falling apart, and you know that it just seems like it keeps falling apart, and you're scared for what lies ahead because you're scared it's going to be worse. It could be that bill that you know is coming that needs to be paid, and you have no idea how you're going to get the money for it. It could be that, Lord, I'm scared because I'm going to be tempted again to go right back into that same sin again. And we can spend all day listing battles, but what we need to do is shift our focus to someone who is greater. Our readiness for the battles ahead depends on our commitment to the God above. What's amazing is that we get to look at this story in the Old Testament through the lens of the New Testament, or with the idea of the gospel in mind, how it all connects to the great redemption story. What's amazing is that I don't have to go do sacrifice to go to the temple. I have a greater reason for hope, and it's Jesus. We see in Hebrews 4:14-16, seeing then that we have a great high priest that has passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was at all points tempted, like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. What is amazing there is what we see is that sin separates us, but Christ enters the picture, and he broke down that separation. Not only that, but he experienced battles. He experienced hardship. He's able to sympathize with us because he was like us. But he never sinned, but he knows and understands what we go through. And because we know that the Lord understands, what I can do now, verse 16, is come boldly before his throne to find mercy and grace in time of need. You know what's cool about that verse? That I'm always in a time of need. I need help every moment. You know what I can do every moment? Come before his throne. And when I do that, when I come before his throne, I see how small the battle is compared to the glorious one seated on the throne. When I'm praying to the God on the throne, I realize, you're awesome. You're way bigger than that thing that's behind me that I'm scared to look at. That I'm scared of what's ahead. You're better because my eyes are transfixed and focused on the God of all. So how do we respond to the battles ahead? Number one is you remember truth. What God has given you, who God is. And 99% of my problems can be solved if I just focus on who God is, of my worries, of my fears. I get comfort and realize how great God is. A lot of times when I'm anxious, I'm not thinking about how great God is. They don't go together. Second, I need to resist the opposition. There's an enemy seeking to destroy, and I need to stay committed. Then finally, I need to reach beyond myself. If you don't have someone you're talking to help you through life, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a pastor, whether that's a trusted friend, you need someone. And then talk with God. What's amazing is that when you do, you can come to him, and he helps you with all the mercy and grace needed in your time of need. You've heard 2 sermons that I mentioned prayer today. You know what that tells me? I should pray. So let's bow our heads or close our eyes and pray boldly before our God. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this time, for this privilege to deliver your word, Lord. And this is something, Lord, I needed because I don't come and pray before you often like I should. I come demanding. I don't come just so amazed by your glory and how you're so good, how you give so much goodness, how you're the sovereign Lord over all, and you are not scared and you are not worried. And that means I don't have to be, because you are also caring and loving and take care of us. Lord, I pray that we can do what Hezekiah did and follow his example of how he remembered truth, resisted what was wrong, what was sinful, and reached beyond himself. Know that we need you, Lord, and we need others in our life. We can't do this by ourselves. Lord, I pray that even tonight we can come before you and lay this week ahead, this battle ahead, give it all to you. We praise you and we thank you. With your heads bowed and your eyes closed, I want to give you a time to do this. As the piano starts to play, I want you to ask yourself this question: is there a battle ahead you're not ready for? And the great news is that God is ready for that battle ahead. So, go to him. What Hezekiah did, I love how the scripture says it, is that he spread out his letter. He spread out the thing that was causing him trouble. He laid it before the Lord, and he prayed over it. He prayed to his God. I encourage us now, whether at your seat or up the front, to pray and be amazed by how our glorious God will make us battle ready.
God, I thank you tonight that you are you are the one who fights for us, and that we can trust in you. I pray you'd help us to be people of prayer who go to you, looking for you to win the battle for us. We love you in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, I'm not going to preach another sermon, but I am going to tell you this. A couple weeks ago, I was at a preacher's meeting, a bunch of pastors in the room, and Pastor Tim Carter, a friend of mine, was preaching to us, and he read these verses, and it goes a lot right along with what Miles said. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily shalt thou be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. That was really helpful to me. It helped me a lot. He said, I asked an old preacher one time, what brought you the most fear? You're at the end of your ministry, what brought you the most fear in your life? And the preacher said, I was the most afraid of a whole bunch of stuff that never happened. You ever feel like that? I know I can be there too. Hey, one thing I'm going to ask you to do tonight, on Tuesday, we don't know the exact time yet because I haven't been told, but Dave Plager, his funeral is going to be here at the church on Tuesday. We're going to try to feed the family. I think it's going to be a funeral that's limited to just the family and a few friends there, so they're limiting it that way. But that I was told there'd be about 100 people of the family that would be there for the meal, and that doesn't give us a lot of time to prepare for the meal. I know we have meat, but we need some more food. Miss Sue Steeman is right back there. If you could make a side or a dessert or something like that on Tuesday, she's going to go out. In fact, Miss Sue, I'm kind of volunteering you to do something here. Sorry. She's going to go out to the Welcome Center. If you tonight could make a side of some kind, could you go see her right after the service and let her know? That way she can help be prepared. I'm so thankful for Sue and her ladies. They do such a good job with the funerals. And I'd like for us to take a vote on less funerals this next year. Who's for that, okay? But we know that we don't control that, and I'm so thankful in situations like this that we know where Dave is going. We know where he's at, and so we're thankful for that. Would you stand with me? I'm going to pray one last time. God, thank you so much for meeting with us today. Thank you for loving us. Thank you that we have each other to help us through battles. And